Good morning. My name is David Mello. I'm the supervisor of children's services here at the Fall River Public Library. And I'd like to introduce you to a friend of mine over here. This cute little fellow. This cute little fellow here is named Grumpy Pants. Now, he's having a particularly grumpy morning. I don't know if you've ever had a morning where you wake up and you feel grumpy. Well, this guy is having one of those, and this is his story. It's called Grumpy Pants by Claire Messer. Penguin was in a bad mood. A very bad mood. He didn't know why, and he didn't care. He stomped his feet all the way home. He does look kind of grumpy, doesn't he? He pulled off his grumpy coat and kicked off his grumpy boots. But he was still grumpy. He tried to shake it off, but he was still grumpy. So he pulled off one grumpy sock, but he was still grumpy, and so he pulled off the other grumpy sock, but he was still grumpy. So he took off his grumpy overalls. Nope, still grumpy. Finally, he took off his grumpy underpants. I'm still grumpy, you know. Then Penguin took a deep breath. Can we take a deep breath together? And he counted 1, 2, 3. Splash! The water was nice and cold. Penguin played with his duck. He hid under the water and made himself a bubble beard. How silly. Little by little, he was starting to feel much better. It was time to get out of the tub. He put on his favorite pajamas, and he had a steaming cup of hot chocolate. That sounds good. He read his favorite book. He found his favorite teddy bear and climbed into bed. As Penguin fell asleep, he knew that tomorrow would be a good day because all the grumpiness had been washed away. And that is Grumpy Pants. Are you still feeling grumpy? He's feeling much better. Now, my next story is about a very special little mouse, and I'd like to introduce you to him right now. Alexander, wait a minute. You're not a mouse. Is this a mouse? Of course not. It's an alligator. This is not your story. What's that? Oh, you want me to do your story now? Okay, since you're here, we'll do your story first. But you'd better behave. I said behave. Okay. We'll do his story first. It is called Snip, Snap, What's That? By Mara Bergman. Now you listen up. Ooh, nobody there. When the alligator came creeping, creeping, creeping up the stairs, were the children scared? You bet they were. Do they look frightened to you? They look frightened to me. Marissa tried to close the door. Eva tried and tried some more. And Jonathan didn't try at all. He just cried and cried and cried. Then he hid. The alligator's mouth was wide. Its teeth were long. Its jaws were strong. The children watched as it began to bite the edges of the door. Snip, 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 snap, snip. Were the children scared? You bet they were. The alligator slithered, slithered, slithered down the hall and slipped into the living room. It swished and swooshed its tremendous tail, which was shiny and spiked and full of scales. Were the children scared? You bet they were. The alligator's tongue was flicking. The alligator's feet were kicking. Then the alligator's mouth opened very wide. Creak, 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 as if to invite the children inside. Were the children scared? You bet they were. The alligator's eyes were flashing. The alligator's teeth were gnashing as tables and chairs and the piano went crashing. And after the sofa and curtains were ripped, the alligator licked its lips. Were the children scared? You bet they were. And then, what did the alligator do? Did it say to the children, "I'm going to eat you"? Well, not exactly, but it came closer and closer and closer until... Oh my goodness. The children decided they had had enough of all this scary alligator stuff. They plucked up their courage and gave a great shout. Alligator, you get out! Get out! And was the alligator scared? You bet it was. Thump, bump, bump, thump. And the alligator went stumbling, tumbling, grumbling, swoosh, all the way home. Snip, snap, the end. Our next story is an old favorite of mine. It's about two little mice. One is called Alexander. The other is called Willie. And this is my friend Willie, and he's not an ordinary mouse. Can you turn around, Willie? Willie is a wind-up mouse. He is a toy mouse. And we're going to see what happens to Willie in this wonderful story, Alexander and the Wind-Up Mouse. Bye-bye, Willie. Alexander and the Wind-Up Mouse by Leo Lionni. Help! Help! A mouse! There was a scream, then a crash. Cups and saucers and spoons were flying in all directions. Alexander ran for his hole as fast as his little legs could carry him. All Alexander wanted was a few crumbs, and yet every time they saw him, they would scream for help or chase him with a broom. One day, when there was no one in the house, Alexander heard a squeak in Annie's room. He sneaked in, and what did he see? Another mouse. But not an ordinary mouse like himself. Instead of legs, it had two little wheels, and on its back was a key. "Who are you?" asked Alexander. "I am Willie, the wind-up mouse, Annie's favorite toy. They wind me up to make me run around in circles. They cuddle me, and at night I sleep on a soft white pillow between the doll and a woolly teddy bear. Everyone loves me. Oh, they don't care much for me," said Alexander sadly. But he was happy to have found a new friend. "Let's go to the kitchen and look for crumbs," he said. Oh, I can't," said Willie. "I can only move when they wind me up. But I don't mind. Everyone loves me." Alexander, too, came to love Willie. He went to visit him whenever he could. He told him of his adventures with brooms, flying saucers, and mouse traps. Willie talked about the penguin, the woolly bear, and mostly about Annie. The two friends spent many happy hours together. But when he was alone in the dark of his hiding place, Alexander thought of Willie with envy. "Oh," he sighed, "why can't I be a wind-up mouse like Willie and be cuddled and loved?" One day, Willie told a strange story. "I've heard," he whispered mysteriously, "that in the garden, at the end of the pebble path, close to the blueberry bush, there lives a magic lizard who can change one animal into another." "Do you mean," said Alexander, "that he could change me into a wind-up mouse like you?" That very afternoon, Alexander went into the garden and ran to the end of the pebble path. "Lizard, lizard," he whispered, and suddenly there stood before him, full of the colors and flowers of the butterflies, a large lizard. "Is it true that you can change me into a wind-up mouse?" asked Alexander in a quivering voice. "When the moon is round," said the lizard, "bring me a purple pebble." For days and days, Alexander searched the garden for a purple pebble, but in vain. He found yellow pebbles and blue pebbles and green pebbles, but not one tiny purple pebble. At last, tired and hungry, he returned to the house. In a corner of the pantry, he saw a box full of old toys, and there, between the blocks and the broken dolls, was Willie. "What happened?" said Alexander, surprised. Willie told him a sad story. It had been Annie's birthday. There had been a party, and everyone had brought a gift. "The next day," sighed Willie, "many of the old toys were dumped in this box. We will all be thrown away." Alexander was almost in tears. Poor Willie, he thought. But then, suddenly, something caught his eye. Could it really be? Yes, it was. It was a little purple pebble. Can you see the purple pebble? All excited, he ran to the garden, the precious pebble tight in his arms. There was a full moon. Out of breath, Alexander stopped near the blackberry bush. "Lizard, lizard in the bush," he said. The leaves rustled, and there stood the lizard. "The moon is round. The pebble is found," said the lizard. "Who or what do you wish to be?" "I want to be..." And then Alexander stopped. Then suddenly he said, "Lizard, lizard, could you change Willie into a mouse like me?" The lizard blinked. There was a blinding flash of light. And then all was quiet. The purple pebble was gone. Alexander ran back to the house as fast as he could. The box was there, but alas, it was empty. Too late, he thought, and with a heavy heart, he went back to his hole in the baseboard. Something squeaked. Cautiously, Alexander moved closer to the hole. There was a mouse inside. "Who are you?" said Alexander, a little frightened. "My name is Willie," said the mouse. "Willie!" cried Alexander. The lizard did it." He hugged Willie, and then they ran to the garden path, and there they danced until dawn. And that's Alexander and the Wind-Up Mouse by Leo Lionni. My next story is about two very good friends. They're owls. Their names are Hoot and Holler. They do everything together like best friends do. And I'd like to introduce you to them right now. Hoot, Holler, can you come on out? Hello, Holler. How are you? Where is Hoot? You don't know where he is? Why, you guys are inseparable. This just can't be. But let me share the story with the audience. This will explain things. Our next story, Hoot and Holler. Every night, two owls played together in the great wood. The big owl was called Holler, and the little owl was called Hoot. Hoot and Holler were too shy to say that they loved each other, but they both loved the games they played together. They played swoop and snatch in the tumbling waterfall. They played crouch and creep in the dripping cave. They played glide and giggle around the overgrown graveyard. And one night, when Holler wasn't looking, a great gust of wind carried Hoot over the graveyard wall and out of sight. When Holler looked around, his friend was gone. Holler thought Hoot did not want to play with a big owl anymore. Holler was sad, but was too shy to call out for Hoot. The storm got bigger and bigger, and soon the wind caught Holler too and blew him over the trees and far away. When the storm was over, Hoot was on one side of the wood, and Holler was on the other. The two owls flew through the night, searching for each other. But the great wood was big, and the night was dark. Hoot could not find Holler, and Holler could not find Hoot. Now Holler will never know that I loved playing with him, thought Hoot. Now Hoot will never know how happy I was with him, thought Holler. Holler flew to the middle of the great wood and asked Wise Owl, who lived in the hollow of an oak tree, "Wise Owl, how can I find Hoot?" Wise Owl blinked his eyes and said, "You must call out strongly so Hoot can hear you." "But I am too shy to call out all by myself," said Holler. "You must be brave," said the Wise Owl, "or you will never find your friend." Holler flew to the moonlit fields where rabbits danced with their shadows. He called out softly, but not very bravely, "Hoot!" Hoot was looking for Holler at the tumbling waterfall and did not hear Holler's soft call. Hoot was scared that Holler did not want to play with a little owl anymore. Holler flew to the tall sycamore tree where foxes chased mice under the rustly leaves. He called out softly, but a little bit more bravely, "Hoot!" Hoot was looking for Holler in the dripping cave, and still Holler's cry was not loud enough. Holler realized that Wise Owl was right. Hoot would never hear a shy, soft call. Holler flew right to the top of the tallest tree and called out very bravely and very strongly, "Hoot! I love you!" Hoot was looking for Holler in the overgrown graveyard when the loud call came. At last he heard, and he called back as loud and as strong as a little owl could, "I love you too!" Foxes and bats, rabbits and deer, badgers and mice, all the animals in the great wood looked up as Hoot came flying through the dark night. Hoot and Holler were so happy to find each other, they hooted and hollered and played until morning. And they were never, ever too shy to say, "I'm happy," "I'm sad," "I'm scared," or "I love you," ever again. And that's Hoot and Holler. I wonder if Holler has found Hoot. Holler! Holler! Hoot! Hoot! Why? There they are. Now, don't lose each other again, okay? If you enjoyed these stories, we have these and plenty more at the Fall River Public Library. All you need to check out these wonderful books is a library card. And if you can print your first and last name by yourself, and you come along with mom or dad or a legal guardian, you may check out your own library card and check out all these wonderful books as well as puppets. And if you enjoy listening to stories, we have a preschool story time every Tuesday at 10:30 at the Fall River Public Library. We do stories, movies, crafts, and more. So I encourage you to join us and discover the wonderful world of literacy.